I'm Joshua Daniel Keith. In 66 days, I'm going to court. If found guilty, I will face $600,000 in fines and 22 years in federal prison. There was an explosion. It blew apart my hand. It threw metal in my eye, my chest, my face. I was working with explosives, and I had the choice to either bring them under federal lock and key or to head to the hospital. I would have had to go an hour out of my way. And because I couldn't stop the bleeding or staunch it, that was not an option. That's why I'm in this position today. While I was working on a specialty blasting cap, it blew up in my hand. Pain hit me like you wouldn't believe. It was absolutely impossible to talk or hear. I was blinded by the light and the mist in the air. Once I looked at my hand, I could see my bones from about the first knuckle all the way up, and my thumb had been shattered. I just couldn't stop the bleeding. I couldn't pack the wound because it was not a laceration, nor did I have the equipment. I tried squeezing my brachial artery. I had to scream for help. My driver in my company, he got me a rag and a tourniquet. Miracle of miracles, we had purchased the tourniquet a day before. That staunched the bleeding just enough to where I could get into his truck and to drive to the hospital. The reason I got my federal explosives license is because it's awesome. There are other reasons. I did get approved in making safety and educational videos on explosives, and who doesn't love fireworks? Just the power, just doing all the work up front, and then in an instant, everything is done. Whether it's mining, whether it's an airbag, whether it's manufacturing, whatever the case may be, dynamic entries, military use, weaponry. Yeah, it's my passion. I love pyrotechnics, explosives, fireworks, incendiaries. Some people like digging holes, some people like golfing, some people like cooking, some people like drawing. I like blowing the crap out of a mountain. I did inform the ATF I was not trained. They gave me the license anyway. I'd like to recommend some training if you're gonna get a license. Yeah, don't be done with explosives. Lesson 1. Lesson 2, always assume something's gonna blow up in your face. While I was in the hospital, that's when I first met David Taylor and Agent Smiley from the ATF and the FBI. So he read me my Miranda rights. I asked for an attorney. He questioned me after. I couldn't leave, and I was on morphine and just survived the initial blast. From that point on, the case should have been dropped because I did not have my Fifth Amendment right. My Miranda rights were not given to me. And then he later states that the Miranda rights don't actually count if it's in a safety capacity, which is a lie. It is a blatant lie. So I mentioned, don't go through my stuff, and I can defuse anything you're worried about because I was previously thinking of a charge that did not go off, which was why I was making the specialty blasting cap to take care of that first charge that did not go off, a misfire. I was kicked out of the hospital and then immediately booked into jail. I spent 35 days in jail. A lot of people don't realize how bad it is. I'm not saying that jail should be a fun place to go to, but it was inhumane. Like, even criminals should not be treated like that, and I was not even convicted at this point. I was especially sick. I had wounds inside, all around me. It would make me vomit, it would make me dry heave, blood would be pouring out of my chest and my eye, and it was just miserable. I wasn't fed enough. I didn't get the medical treatment I needed. My body was stealing all nutrients to focus on my hand, my chest, and my eye, and it simply didn't have the resources. In the 35 days I was in jail, I lost 32 pounds. I was constantly sick and constantly denied medical treatment. My injuries were fresh. Not to mention the torture I survived.
You want to talk about that?
I can, yeah. April 30th, 2019, I was checking out my fingers to see how badly they were injured and to see if any progress had been made. And I was immediately called into the medical cell. Camilla, she's the witch that was the night nurse, the head night nurse. She basically drowned my fingers in scalding hot water, and she would smile in my discomfort. She started tugging the wrapping, and the wrapping was connected to the scabs because the scabs had bled through into the fabric. And each tug, each pull, every jolt felt like it was being run over, it was being seared like hot bacon grease was spilled on your hand. She enjoyed it. There's no doubt in my mind that she enjoyed being superior over a helpless inmate. I thought I was done, once the gauze was ripped open, and it was slightly bandaged back, but it cut off the circulation, which I later found out by Dr. Anderson. And upon completion, one of the sheriff's deputies looked away to check his perimeter, stretch his legs. She reached over my center line and crushed my raw bone, my thumb that was just recently amputated. And I know it just sounds like she squeezed my thumb, but the amount of pain, I almost blacked out, but blacking out would not have helped. I tried to remember everything. I tried to leave blood everywhere to prove I was there. This is when it happened. Get a timestamp if at all possible. Leave smears or bloody fingerprints so that there is evidence. I spent another week and a half beyond, 2 weeks beyond when that happened. And then I was released. I couldn't get the message out soon enough. There was only cameras in the hallways and intake. So I don't think there was any cameras in the medical room for patient confidentiality, which was breached, which is why I was in there in the first place. So the HIPAA Act originally said there's 5 things that exclude the HIPAA Act from protecting information. Yeah, medical information. Gunshot and stab wounds, which this was not. Sexually transmitted diseases, child or elder abuse, rape cases, and when the police ask for that specific information. And they freely gave all my information, Social Security, my license, my manufacturing license to make explosives, and injuries I sustained, care I was given. They were an open book to the FBI, the ATF, Homeland Security, Secret Service, the UBI, which is the Utah Bureau of Investigation, the Sheriff's Department, the Police Department. And when I confronted them with it, with paperwork to sue, they lawyered up and they said, nope, we were worried about the safety of other people. That's why we disclosed it. I disagree because I showed them that I was licensed to manufacture explosives and I was the only one injured. Yeah, if I had more money, I would press it further, but I mean, just the medical bills alone came close to $80,000. April 9th, 2019 is when I originally went into the hospital. May 15th, I was released from jail. The judge, and this is very abnormal, the judge signed me to get out to get treatment so I wouldn't get irreversible blindness in my left eye. I had court. It was with Judge Kevin Allen. The charges that were pressed against me by the state of Utah were reckless endangerment and possession of an incendiary or explosive device. The judge dismissed the charges. I was licensed to manufacture explosives, and the worst thing that could have possibly happened happened, and nobody else got hurt. Well, maybe not the worst thing that could have happened, but it was pretty bad. But because of the precautions I put into place, nobody else got hurt. So the case was dismissed without prejudice. So without prejudice means that they can press charges later on before it reaches the statute of limitations, but it wasn't hard pressed. It was, okay, for now we're satisfied for a few years, and then the state of Utah expunged the case. So by Judge Angela Fonsbeck on September 22nd, 2022, it was expunged. The FBI had been harassing me this entire time. They came to my house They said, you have to confess to a felony, otherwise we're going to charge you with 9 felonies, namely domestic terrorism. I said no. I requested an attorney. I was denied. He questioned me again. Seems to be a recurring event. The sheriff was there. I got federal public defenders for my federal case, and that it helped in some ways, but it hurt in others. They realized that I don't have many options, and in a lot of cases they are not held accountable to what they do, and they always have the excuse, we have too many cases, we cannot focus on each individual one, and they're paid by the same people that are prosecuting. So what is the benefit of doing a stellar job? Because they continually work with the prosecuting side. Vanessa, my federal public defender, very intelligent, very experienced. She's working in law since I was born, so she's been working in law for 25 years. Wojtek, no comment. I met with the Joint Counterterrorism Task Force with Vanessa Ramos, Wojtek, Matt, Alba, and then the Assistant Attorney General of the United States, Brian Reeves, Special Agent David Taylor of the FBI, and the Joint Counterterrorism Task Force, and Agent Smiley. I think he was ATF. So it's a table, we all sit down. They said, hey, we want to make sure that the public is in safety. I agree, I want that too. They said, we want 3 things. We want all of your passwords, so computers, iPads, cell phones, any explosives that are out there, we need to secure that. We want $90,000 restitution, a confession to a felony, and you can never hold your explosives license again. So I said no. Time passes, and during this time, it is paralyzing. You know, it's harder to get a job, the amount of stress that is placed on you, the threat of facing, you know, years and years in prison, being treated like a domestic terrorist, newspaper clippings of, you know, my mugshot from the state of Utah. I had friends turn their back. I had neighbors, I would say betray, but what can you do? They are told one story and you are not allowed to tell the truth. That's one of the reasons I'm here today, to get the truth out. This is what really happened. In the past 3.5 years, they've offered me a plea deal. I pay $90,000 restitution, I confess to a felony, and I can never hold my explosives license again with 1 year probation. I said no. They said $80,000, 1 felony, no probation, but I can never have my explosives license again. I said no. They said $20,000 restitution, a misdemeanor, I can never hold my explosives license again, and 1 year probation. I said no. $15,000, a misdemeanor, no drug tests on the probation, but it would be a year probation, and I can never hold an explosives license again. I said no. Their last attempt was give us $10,000 and we will drop all charges. I said no.
Why did you say no to the last deal?
I didn't have 10,000. I mean, I think it's morally wrong to confess to something you didn't do, and then you will be labeled the rest of your life as a felon or a coward. But when we say things that we do not believe, that's when our word means nothing, and it's not okay. Even if I had the money, I don't think it should go to rewarding bullying, and that's what it is. It is governmental bullying and tyranny. I said no because it is the wrong thing to do. I've prayed about it, I've thought about it, I get the overwhelming feeling to fight. Also, I get the feeling, go as far as you can. My father died of stomach cancer many years ago. He taught me there is honor in fighting, even if you lose. But they want to make an example out of me. I think that is their goal. They spent so many millions of dollars investigating me. And it looked dumb. I was licensed. They pre-approved me. If I was to do something nefarious or wicked afterwards, then they would get blamed. So to put more blame on me, they're threatening and bullying me to make a plea deal to cover their own butt, or as a justification for the amount of resources they have spent and the financial burden they have caused investigating me. Those are the reasons I see. The agencies that are pressing these charges against me are the Attorney General's office, the FBI, and the ATF. I believe I was following the major law of the land. My right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. They are claiming that explosives are weapons. If they are weapons, I have the right to keep and possess them. But they are accusing me of being in possession of weapons that they themselves have used, and not only used, but blown up in the exact residence they're accusing me of having them. So the FBI collected something they thought was an explosive. They didn't test it in fear that it was too volatile to work with. They put in a bomb robot. They wrapped that suspicious package in det cord, which is an explosive cord. They did a crisscross charge. They had the bomb squad, and the city of, I won't say which city it is, but they dug a hole in a residential property, placed it in, evacuated the people, and they blew it up. And it blew up 3 times bigger than they were expecting, leaving a giant crater in someone's yard. I don't think that was a smart idea, but apparently that was their standard operating procedure. Blow up people's yards. So the FBI has blown up 2 yards in this investigation. One in Garland, one in Cache County. The evidence that I have seen, they have done exactly what they are accusing me of doing, and they are not on trial, but I am. A deal that I would accept has 5 things involved in it. 1, it's a 11C1C agreement, which means the judge can either agree or disagree. He cannot change it. It is written in ironclad. And then in this 11C1C agreement, there's a deferred prosecution agreement, which means instead of being prosecuted legally, I can do something else that will equal what I did, because I always think the crime should equal the punishment. That's how it's supposed to be handled. The punishment would be service hours. 365 service hours in the community that this allegedly happened. $500 restitution, and upon completion of the restitution and the service hours, I can have everything expunged, deleted from record. I have paid my debt to society, and I believe there should be no record of anything going against me. I think helping my community is the best way. I was acting within my constitutional rights as an American. If I had the resources to hire an attorney, this would be dropped immediately. Not only because they broke the 5th Amendment, but also because it's double jeopardy. I've already been tried for this crime in the state of Utah. The state of Utah dropped it, and the state of Utah expunged it by a different judge. 2 judges have looked at the case and the evidence and said, this is not worth pursuing. But the FBI is trying to push it. There are people far worse than me that the government should be focusing on, and they are not. I think it would be unjust to focus on me when there are other bad actors. There are 0 victims that can come against me in court. This is a victimless crime, except for me. I did get injured, and I think that's punishment enough. I wrote a book.
Oh, yeah.
I wrote a book because this story needs to be heard. It's called Honey, I Blew Up Myself, and the subtitle is How I, a Licensed Explosives Manufacturer, Found Myself in the Crosshairs of the FBI.
What advice would you give people that are going to do jury duty?
You have the highest amount of power in the courtroom. You can say guilty or not guilty by your own conscience. If you don't think the law should exist, you say not guilty. If you think they broke something that may not have been a law, but they broke it and you think that should have been a law, you can say guilty. And you are not questioned on how you came to the verdict. So you can decide for yourself, what if they did do the crime? Then again, what if not?